Hi everyone, it's Niamh here and welcome to my art journaling channel. Today we're going to be creating a piece inspired by the amazing Megan Quinlan, who you'll find on Instagram, and I'll leave a link to her Instagram page in the description box below. So Megan does these amazing journals using Dina Wakley products. She's a bit of a convert like me. But she does all these cutout pages and has all these interlinked pages that, you know, flip through one, you see something else come through. She's amazing at using the craft paper as well, which is something I really struggle with. So, and her color choices, I always get inspired by her color choices, which is where the color choices I've chosen today have come from. So please check her out. You will come away inspired, and the techniques that she shows are simple but beautiful. You can sort of see where she's coming from, but they're very not hard to replicate, but you can kind of pick what's happening. But they're so unique and not something you would ever think of yourself, I don't think. So yeah, that's my singing my praises for Megan, because she is amazing and her artwork is fabulous. So I'm starting off with a number of pages in my Dina Wakley journal, because obviously I'm going to be flipping through a few pages, so I want to have a few pages coloured. And one of the things I have learnt in my many days doing lace cut pages, which this is kind of like, is that you need to have contrasting colours, or you know, warm colours and cool colours, to get the best contrast when in your peekaboo pages, so you can actually see stuff coming through. Megan does actually tend to work probably more monochromatically, particularly sort of when she's working on the craft pages. She tends to work with whites, coppers and the craft colour, but these two colour combinations, sort of the pinky purples and the blues, also feature a lot in her artwork. So I'm going through and I am colouring the two middle pages and then the two outside pages with the purple, which is eggplant, fuchsia, magenta and heather, I think, and the inside pages were marine, peacock, turquoise and mineral. So and I've just used a brush to blend them together to get a really cool effect. Megan draws a lot of her own faces in her artwork. I decided that I was going to not cheat, but I had this page from the Dina Wakley Collage Collective, and it just fitted in beautifully because the colours that I used on the pages really matched with it. Now, the reason I chose to do this was because I wasn't sure how I was going to have the face peeking through. So because this is my first page doing it, I just wanted to focus on doing the cutting out rather than worrying about the face in the background. Now, Dina Wakley has just released another 2 collage collectives with a whole heap of faces, so there's lots of different options. You can obviously draw your own faces, which, you know, that's fantastic if you can. If you are struggling with your faces, you can use the collage tissues, or you can use a magazine image, or you can use the collage collective. So there's lots of ways you can get artwork on. So what I'm doing now is I just use a clear block to sort of work out where my eyes were going to be, because I wanted those to be the focus. I wanted to have a frame around the eyes. So I'm actually having sort of 2 cut pages on this. And once I'd worked it out, I'm just going to tear that little section out. So this is going to act where I'll only see the eyes peeping through, so you can see that on the page, and just flip backwards and forwards to see if it works for you. Now, one of the things that Megan does a lot in her artwork is she loves circles. A lot of her artwork is circles, and particularly with this stamp set. So this is the Dina Wakley For the Love of Circles stamp set, and it's obviously just random circles, and it looks like, why would you use this? But it actually is a really handy little tool. It's a great mark making tool, so you can come up with all sorts of things. I've chosen to stamp out in the colours, similar colours to what I've got used on the page. So I'm using some of the archival inks and just stamping out on some white card, lots of different circle shapes, and then I'll fussy cut around them. so that I can add them onto the page. I'm not being too careful. You can see there I'm sort of mixing the inks, and that's okay because on my page itself they were fairly well mixed. I've saved you the boring bit of me cutting out all the circles because no one needs to see that. And now I'm going to start gluing my images on. And this bit is, I suppose, where Megan comes into her own. First of all, I will link you in the description box below, not only to her Instagram page, but to the blog post where this piece was inspired by. And when I've seen her work previously, I've always thought she's stamped on this and cut out around them. In actual fact, she just stamps stuff out, fussy cuts around them and glues them on afterwards, which makes sense, and it makes it a lot easier to sort of plan how you're going to put things together. So I really liked that. The other thing is, for those of you who have worked in the Dina Wakley journal before, the texture of the cotton rag paper, while it's great to paint on and so on, isn't brilliant for stamping on. You can actually see up in the top corner the piece that I cut out of this frame originally. I thought, oh, I'll stamp on that and cut those out, but it just didn't work. I didn't get a really clear stamping with the ink. I could have used my stamp platform, but I think I probably would have had to do a fair few goes on it to make it actually come up. So I really like that idea of stamping onto the cardboard and gluing it on. And it just means you can do what I'm doing now and just play around and add, one piece on top of the other and so on. So you can see, obviously, this is a double-sided piece. So I kind of have to cover up the back and the front. In the end, though, I decided the two hoop bits that are sticking out, I don't actually cover over. I was trying desperately to work out how I could, but I didn't come up with a solution to it. So I had to sort of come away and think about it. I really liked how it ended up, but yeah, it was just something. It's like, oh, I'm not sure about that. So I'm just using the Tim Holtz collage medium to glue everything down. Just because it's self-contained. If I'd used gel medium, just because they're fine little pieces, it probably would have slid around a little bit more. So just by having something I could stick down and know it was going to stay there, just made everything a little bit easier. So you'll notice that when I'm gluing everything down, I'm making sure I've got pieces that sort of go off the edges and link together in some way, shape or form. Also, by putting some corner pieces on and sandwiching the front and back between the corner, actually gives a little strength to the corner, so it's less likely to sort of bend and tear, because obviously, even though it's quite a wide frame, the stability of the paper, the strength of the paper is compromised by cutting into it, so you just need to be aware as you're going. So I'm just going around and fiddling, and it's really important. You can see me flipping backwards and forwards, and that's how you see if you've got a good flow to what's going on. I really loved having that loop over the eye. That was really serendipitous how that happened, and that is still one of my favorite parts of the whole piece. While I was doing this, I knew that I wanted to do some of my own style lace cut page on this. So I knew that I wanted to cut into the front page with the quote, eyes of the window to the soul, and have that sort of peeking through. And I suppose that's my little spin on Megan's piece. So the middle section is definitely her, but this is sort of me putting my little spin on it, because I love cutting text. I love cutting out of pages. I really like the effect that you get of the layering. So I'm just going in to give the front page a little bit more texture, and I'm just going in with some text stamps. So again, that's another Dina Wakley stamp, and using the purple and pink colour, or the lighter purple and a darker purple, to sort of get that ombre-ish effect happening down the page. You'll also see I've just changed the blade of my craft knife, and it's really, really important when you're doing some paper cutting. Just so you get a nice clean edge, that you don't have things tearing, particularly on the paper in the Dina Wakley journal, or the original journal. The new blue journal is much easier to cut in just because the paper is a little bit thicker, so you're less likely to tear it. With the thinner paper in this, it cuts beautifully, but you just need to have a really sharp knife. So if you feel it starting to tear, change your blade over and you'll get a really good cut. So the first thing I'm doing is sort of sketching out my letters that I'm going to cut out around. I use a Stabilo oil pencil to do this. And the reason for that, as I explained in my videos before, is because it's water soluble. So once I'm finished, if there's any lines that I've missed or I've decided to change the cut, that I can just use a wet wipe over the top and it will wipe away. I find that I'm too heavy-handed when I use a pencil, so it sort of actually scores into the page a little bit and I still see the result afterwards, and it really bugs me. So that's my little solution to how I get around that. So you can see I'm just going in carefully and cutting out the letters. Now it is a little bit monotonous, this process, but it's worthwhile going slow and going steady. You can see me sort of changing the angle of my wrist as well. In theory, you should actually really move your paper and not move your wrist, but for when you're doing fine work like this, particularly with letters, it's really hard to do that. So just be careful and go slow. Obviously, I've got a cutting mat in between my page to protect the other pages behind. That's a kitchen mat from IKEA, just one of those really thin plastic mats. The reason I love it is because it's thin enough so I can get close enough to the spine of my book. If you have a self-healing cutting mat, because they're slightly thicker, it comes away from the edge a bit, so you can't get as close to the spine of your book as you might want to. So the thinner your cutting mat, the closer to the edge you can get. And that was a sort of A3 size cutting mat, and I've just cut it down to, I cut it straight in half, so it just fits in beautifully into my book. So as you're going along, just you can see I'm keeping a pile of letters off to one side. I often do that because I think that, I can't waste anything and I might put it into another project. In actual fact, I did use some of those letters in this project, which I wasn't expecting to, but it just added a really nice finish to the piece. So you can see me again take the cutting mat out and check how it was going. And as soon as I did that, I was really happy with it because there's that beautiful contrast of the blues against the purples. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but it is really, really important when you're doing pages like this that you check as you go along to see if it's actually looking the way you want it to. Because if you finish cutting something and you don't like it, you've got less opportunity to actually fix it up. If you check as you go along, if there's something you think, it's not quite working, you've got more opportunities to fix it. So just be aware of that. So that's the final piece happening, and you can see me sort of just checking through. I had some of the pieces of circles left over, so I decided I wanted to add some to the front just to again give that beautiful follow through, and that's something that Megan is again so skilled at. She is able to get a beautiful flow to the pages that she creates in her journals, that they just flow one after the other, and they may be different color schemes and all sorts, but she just sort of keeps one element and can follow it through, so it looks seamless and it looks like every single thing in the journal belongs there. In comparison, for those people who follow my channel, my journals don't look like that. One page is neon colors and paint splashed everywhere, and the next page it's journal heavy, and the next page it's something else. So it's good to have variety. So you can see here I'm using the word soul to stick on to the picture of the lady, and I really liked how that turned out, and I loved it too because the letters obviously had a different color on the other side, and with the U I could reverse it. I could have done the O as well, but I just liked reversing one of the letters to make it stand out. So here is a close-up of the final piece, or the final pages. I did debate for a long while if I was going to do something on the burlap, and I still might in the future, but it took me a while to actually come around to it. But I was really happy with how it all sort of linked together. So thank you so much for watching. Please, please, please check out Megan's link to Instagram in the description box below, and also her blog post that she did for Ranger Ink, where I got the inspiration for this piece. And for any of the Dina Wakley products that you can see in this project, you can find links to those below in the description box as well. Until next time, bye for now.